Vonlee Nicole Titlow's accent came from the hills of Appalachia.
She's got that bit of a southern drawl.
But her look was straight from Hollywood.
She was hot, she was sexy.
Very glamorous, very blonde.
And she had the lifestyle to go with it.
She's living in a really large, beautiful house, no rent, no job.
But then a mysterious death.
I think my husband is dead on the floor.
And a bitter betrayal.
She said, I got $100,000.
Would reveal that nothing about Vonlee was what it appeared to be.
I'm still in shock. I don't blame you. Have you seen them?
Troy, Michigan, August 12, 2000. It was a typical Saturday morning in this affluent bedroom community 20 miles north of Detroit.
Troy is a beautiful city. Very nice, middle class. Most of the people that live there are white collar types and educated.
And despite being in Detroit's shadow, crime is so low that when a late-night 911 call comes in, it's more often than not to report a medical emergency, which appeared to be the case at 4:25 that morning, when the city's 911 dispatch received an urgent call from one of the area's upscale neighborhoods.
I think my husband is dead on the floor.
The caller was 60-year-old Billie Jean Rogers.
Do you know what happened?
I have no idea. We went to the casino, and I was with my niece. She's visiting us from out of town.
She reported that they had come home from the casino and found him.
And based on what Billie told the dispatcher, he had been dead for some time.
He's very cold. I can't feel any cold.
When police and paramedics arrived on the scene minutes later, they confirmed it. 74-year-old Donald Rogers lay dead on the kitchen floor.
He was an elderly gentleman, and there did not appear to be any foul play in his death.
And as Billie explained to the authorities, her husband was a chronic alcoholic.
There had been a history of his being drunk and being injured. I don't think the cops thought anything unusual.
At the scene, the police briefly questioned Billie Jean and her niece, 33-year-old Vonlee Titlow.
Vonlee was very glamorous, very blonde.
And very upset.
Miss Titlow is a very emotional person.
She was surprised, she was distressed. They'd gone out that evening and they came back. And there he was.
Of course, it was natural for a young woman to be upset by her uncle's sudden death. And just as natural for the police and EMTs to consider it routine.
Alcoholics do die at home. It's not an everyday occurrence, but it's not by any stretch of the imagination a rare occurrence.
However, as the investigation would reveal, nothing about Donald Rogers' death was what it appeared to be. Not even the identity of the young woman who claimed to be his niece. Born in 1967, Vonlee Nicole Titlow grew up in the mountains of Tennessee.
I was 17 when Vonlee was born. I lived with my mama in an old shack with outside plumbing.
It was a hard life, but the family pulled together.
My grandmother pretty much raised Vonlee.
My mama always had Vonlee a bath and was powdered up and smelling perfect when I got up.
She looked perfect, too. Even as a small child, she loved to play dress-up with her younger sisters.
And she'd have on granny's gowns. She put makeup on the girls, painted their fingernails.
And by the time she was a teen, Vonlee had developed a serious knack for fashion.
in junior high. She began to develop the actual expertise of makeup and dressing.
After high school, Vonlee went to cosmetology school and worked as a nail technician.
Vonlee did finish before you do nails and pedicures and manicures.
But her greatest beauty creation was herself.
She lived her life to groom herself to be as attractive as she could be. The right clothing, the right makeup.
Vonlee was very glamorous looking.
In fact, she was so glamorous that men regularly took notice.
She was very striking. She was somebody you might talk to at a bar.
She's got that bit of a southern drawl, which is just engaging.
And in her early 20s, when she met a well-off older man from Nashville at a bar one night, Vonlee's engaging personality and good looks proved to be her ticket out of East Tennessee.
Bought Vonlee a new car, had a brick mansion on a hill, and took care of Vonlee.
If you were to see photos of her from that time, she was really attractive. She was hot. She was sexy. What guy doesn't want that on their arm?
Vonlee spent several years in Nashville, just not with the same man. For a pretty party girl like Vonlee, there was always someone else vying for her attention. Someone with a bigger house and a flashier car.
Everything just seemed to be very exciting for her.
None of the relationships really lasted, but that didn't matter to Vonlee.
Vonlee's lifestyle was not one in which emotional bonds were made, kept, retained, and nourished over years. She was what's happening right here, today, we're having fun, I love it. Oh, tomorrow, it's another day.
And by the time she entered her 30s in the late 90s, Vonlee had partied her way to a much bigger city, Chicago.
Vonlee never really had a problem with making a living. Vonlee was, a model.
At least that's what she told her family back home in Tennessee. But in truth, modeling didn't pay her bills. Men did.
Was she a prostitute? Absolutely not. Was she a good time party girl? Absolutely.
And there were always plenty of sugar daddies willing to pick up the tab.
It was a very heady time for her. She was dressing well, living well. She had an apartment. She didn't have responsibilities.
But she still had family. And despite her party lifestyle, she tried to keep in touch. In the summer of 2000, 33-year-old Vonlee went home to Tennessee for an extended visit. And while she was there, Vonlee got reacquainted with her mother's older sister, Billie Jean. Much like Vonlee, Billie had left home as a young woman, fleeing a childhood filled with poverty and uncertainty.
She said, when I come back, I'll be a millionaire.
And she'd made good on her promise, more or less. She wasn't a millionaire, but she had married one, her husband, Donald.
Don Rogers was a tool and die shop owner, and he did pretty well for himself.
He was worth at least a couple $1 million.
And thanks to her husband's money, Billie had recently bought a condo in Tennessee so she could spend more time with her family.
She'd come in driving, brand new vehicles, and we'd go out to eat at the, the high dollar buffets, and she paid for everybody.
Which meant that in the eyes of nieces and nephews, Billie Jean was practically a movie star.
When she was around, it was almost kind of like a party.
And now that Billie and Vonlee both happened to be in Tennessee at the same time, they quickly realized they were kindred spirits.
And Billie was just as much a free spirit, spending her husband's money, going to the casinos, living the high life.
The pair spent several late nights at the local bars and a casino in the Smoky Mountains.
Her and Vonlee went gambling.
In fact, they got along so well that when Billie Jean flew back home to Michigan, she made Vonlee an offer.
She wanted Vonlee to drive her car to Michigan.
Vonlee's mother urged her to accept Billie's offer.
And I thought Billie Jean will help her get a job and help her with her life. That's what I thought.
Although, as it turned out, it was Billie who needed help.
Billie needed a friend.
And when Vonlee met her Uncle Donald, it was easy to see why Billie was lonely.
Donald was a drinker.
He never really left the house. He sat at the house every day and drank.
He would be pretty much unconscious from drinking every night.
So for the next 6 weeks, Vonlee lived with her aunt and uncle, accompanying Billie out to Detroit bars and casinos while Donald drank.
She's living in a really large, beautiful house. All of her meals are paid for, no rent, no job that she had to have, and every night, alcohol, gambling with her friend.
However, that hadn't stopped the attractive 33-year-old from lining up her next prospective sugar daddy. Danny Chaheen, a well-off 40-year-old she had met while out with Billie at a Detroit casino.
We had family businesses, but he was also acting as a jeweler. He certainly made a lot of money and certainly was very free with it.
And by August, when she wasn't gambling or drinking with Billie, Vonlee was often out on a date with Danny.
You've got this May-December situation going on.
But as it turned out, their romance wouldn't last long. And neither would Vonlee's Uncle Donald. Early on the morning of August 12, 2000, police in Troy, Michigan got a 911 call from a woman in one of the Detroit suburbs' upscale neighborhoods.
I just walked in the door, and my husband's laying on the floor in the kitchen, and it looks like he's dead.
The caller, 60-year-old Billie Jean Rogers, had just returned home from a girls' night out with her 33-year-old niece, Vonlee Nicole Titlow.
We went to the casino. So you've been alone all that time? Yes.
When the police arrived minutes later, they found Billie Jean's husband, 74-year-old Donald Rogers, dead on the kitchen floor, apparently from natural causes.
The scene presents itself as a known alcoholic dead on the floor with no bruising, no knife wounds, no gun wounds, no furniture in disarray, nothing that has them think that something more has happened.
And when the medical examiner looked at Donald's body and blood samples later that same morning, all the signs indicated that Donald had simply drunk himself to death.
He had some chronic alcoholism issues.
He was just simply riddled with cirrhosis and all of the other issues that go along with being a lifelong alcoholic.
And with a blood alcohol level of 0.44, he was also drunk when he died.
That's 4 times the legal driving limit.
The medical examiner said he died of either a heart attack or from liver failure.
The case appeared all but closed. But then, on August 30th, 2000, little more than 2 weeks after Donald Rogers' death, the Troy Police Department's homicide unit got a call from a policeman in Bloomfield, Michigan, another Detroit suburb.
A Bloomfield officer call the detective directly, find out if they have an open investigation going on.
According to the officer, he was asking on behalf of a friend of his, a jeweler and businessman named Danny Chaheen.
He had developed relationships with various Troy police officers.
Danny was also in a romantic relationship with Donald Rogers' niece, Vonlee Titlow. And according to what Danny had told his friend in the police department, she had recently come to him with a shocking story. Within hours of the phone call, Danny was sitting down with investigators from the Troy Police Department.
I really appreciate you coming in.
Danny told the police that he had been going out with Vonlee for about a month when her uncle died.
It would have been the end of June when I met her.
And according to Danny, he'd been out to dinner with Vonlee on August 13th, the night after her uncle's death, when he started wondering if it wasn't due to natural causes.
Vonlee said that her aunt was tired of caring for him. He was a chronic alcoholic, and she was tired of dealing with it.
My conscience is saying you should go to the police.
That wasn't the only thing that made Danny suspicious either. The casino regular told the investigators that Billie Jean was a hardcore gambling addict.
She was down at the casino 4, 5, 6 nights a week.
Every time I was with her, she was winning.
But according to Danny, those nights were the exception, not the rule.
She was losing money left and right. There was one night where she lost $13,000.
You can burn through a lot of money very quickly gambling.
She owed $40,000.
Debts that her husband had refused to pay off, according to what Vonlee supposedly told Danny.
She told me that her aunt and her uncle got in a big fight.
So she was kind of desperate.
And according to Danny, Vonlee had told him that was the real reason her uncle was dead.
She told him the story of how her and her aunt had murdered the uncle.
Based on what Vonlee had supposedly told Danny, it wasn't really a plan. Instead, it was just an idea her aunt had been mulling over for some time.
In Billie Jean's mind, according to Vonlee, she was going to kill him and get his money.
And then, in the early morning hours of August 12th, Billie and her niece had come home from the casino and found Donald passed out drunk.
I remember her telling me that he wasn't dead when they got there.
But he soon would be.
Billie wanted to see him dead, and she'd had an idea how she wanted to do it. Now here is the opportunity.
First, according to Danny, Vonlee said that she and her aunt had hoped to kill Donald with alcohol poisoning.
She said they kept pouring vodka into his mouth.
But in his drunken stupor, they couldn't get Donald to actually swallow the liquor.
It was just going all over the place.
So according to what Vonlee allegedly told Danny, Billie had come up with another idea.
She said, and then my aunt got a pillow and put it over his head.
And they smothered him with a pillow.
Was it true? Had Vonlee really confessed to murdering her uncle? According to Danny, the answer was yes.
The mirror was very serious.
She has tremendous guilt, and part of her way of dealing with it was talking about it.
This is not something that she could keep deep down, not a deep, dark secret.
It wasn't Vonlee's only secret, though. According to Danny, she had another, one that he claimed gave her a motive for murder.
She told me that she's not a woman.
Born Harry Vonlee Titlow. From an early age, Vonlee's mother had known that her son was different.
I knew, but I didn't want to admit it, but I knew.
Vonlee's mother may have known, but even in his teens, Vonlee had struggled with denial.
He tried dating. He dated 2 girls that I know of.
But eventually, the troubled teenager's true nature had won out.
She began to dress and to grow her hair and to behave more feminine.
Being openly transgendered was a brave decision, especially in the heart of the Bible Belt.
Most of them end up losing their families completely.
But thankfully, Vonlee's family was different.
I had to accept him because I loved him.
And with the support of her family, Vonlee began living as a woman at the age of 18.
If you didn't know that he was a male, you would never know him. I mean, he looked like a female.
Especially after some breast augmentation.
He went entered a contest and come in second place in a bikini.
The transformation wasn't entirely complete, however.
Vonlee wanted sexual reassignment surgery.
It wasn't an easy decision. The surgery required extensive pre-op hormone treatments and psychological counseling.
It takes 2 years to be in therapy, to go through the transition.
And then there was the expense.
Most surgeries are close to $20,000.
And according to what Danny Chahine told the police, the cost of the surgery was how Billy had gotten Vonlee involved in killing her husband.
She could manipulate her with offering her a large sum of money.
She said, I got $100,000.
Her uncle's money, her aunt's gambling, and Vonlee's need for cash to complete her transformation. Danny's story sounded plausible, but there was still one little problem: his motive for betraying Vonlee.
Men that go out with a pre-op transsexual, they can turn against you.
And by his own admission, Danny hadn't taken the news well.
I told her I'm not that type of person to be with another man. I cannot be.
Even though he had been on 3 different occasions.
You know, in the heat of the moment, you're not going to ask.
He had no idea that Vonlee was a man.
I'm still in the shock. Have you seen that woman?
I think he considered it an affront to his sense of masculinity.
But was he shocked enough to seek revenge, accusing Vonlee of a crime she didn't commit? Before things went any further, the investigators asked Danny whether he would be willing to get confirmation.
The police asked him if he would wear a wire, a hidden recording device, and he agreed to do that.
By September 1st, 2000, it had been almost 3 weeks since Vonlee Titlow's uncle, Donald Rogers, had died of what the medical examiner determined to be natural causes.
The medical examiner indicates that he could find nothing physical. There had been this history that he was a known alcoholic.
But the day before, Vonlee's boyfriend Danny Chahine had come forward with a story that was almost too shocking to be believed. If what Danny told the Troy, Michigan police was true, Vonlee and her aunt Billie Jean Rogers had killed Donald in order to get their hands on the retired businessman's millions.
It was all about the money. They wanted money for Billy's gambling debts.
However, Danny claimed that Vonlee had her own reasons to go after Donald's money. According to Danny, the attractive blonde he'd been wining and dining around area casinos needed the cash to finance her gender reassignment surgery.
His name is Harry Vonlee Titlow, and he was born a man.
And his response made the investigators question Danny's motive for coming forward.
From what he said, he was so furious when he found out that she was really a man. He went to his friend, who was a police officer.
Was it possible Danny was seeking revenge against Vonlee by making false accusations about her uncle Donald's death?
He just seemed to be kind of threatened. This woman, this very glamorous woman that he had been dating, was actually a man.
So before the investigation went any further, the Troy police asked Danny to get proof to back up his claim.
They wired him and then sent him out on a date with her.
The pair met up on the evening of September 1st at a Detroit casino.
Well, I haven't been drinking this kind of. I can't believe it. I can't believe the way you look.
The small talk continued over drinks and dinner, while Danny clumsily tried to steer the conversation onto Donald Rogers' death.
He's not very skilled at tricking somebody into making a statement.
But eventually, her uncle's death did come up, especially the guilt she felt over it.
I feel guilty for doing that. If I got struck down by lightning right now, I'd be driving.
The investigators heard Vonlee too. First, when she described how her Aunt Billy had killed her husband.
I didn't remember that.
And when she confirmed that Billy had paid her for taking part in the murder.
You brought me $100,000 check. I feel guilty for even spending the money. I thought I just giving it to charity or something. And I thought, well, that's really stupid.
The investigators had what they wanted. And when they pulled Billie Jean Rogers' financial records, they found even more evidence to support a case for murder.
They subpoena the bank records. What do they see? Checks to Vonlee.
Billie could easily afford it, based on what she had inherited from her husband's estate.
He was worth several $1 million.
Between the financial motive and Vonlee's taped confession, the investigators figured they had a strong case for murder. But one hurdle remained.
The medical examiner had said he died of natural causes.
And another examination would be impossible.
The body had been cremated.
All the investigators had to work with were photos from the coroner's report. And after reviewing them carefully, another medical examiner noticed something that the initial exam missed.
A rug burn scratch right on the nose that was not the type of injury you would get on a linoleum floor from a fall.
Instead, it matched the manner of death that Vonlee had described.
Abrasions here indicate he was smothered by a pillow.
On December 5th, 2000, the medical examiner's office changed Donald Rogers' cause of death to asphyxia by smothering and ruled it a homicide. And investigators quickly turned their attention to Vonlee and Billie Jean. On January 4th, 2001, Vonlee was arrested for her uncle's murder.
It charges first-degree premeditated murder conspiracy, which means the two of them planned in advance together what to do.
However, Billie Jean offered the investigators a very different explanation for her husband's so-called murder. Her niece had made the whole thing up.
Let me explain about Nicole. She will tell them wild-ass stories.
Basically, her theory in dealing with Vonlee's statements to her boyfriend were Vonlee's crazy. She's drunk, she made it all up, she likes the drama of it all.
Despite that claim, less than 2 months later, Billie Jean was arrested on the same murder and conspiracy charges as Vonlee. However, she used money from her husband's estate to pay her own $100,000 bail.
The law, until she's convicted, won't allow that money to be frozen.
Billie Jean refused to post her niece's bail, however.
I'm sure that one of the first things that her attorney told her was that we now separate from her completely, or she's on her own.
Instead, it was the prosecution who offered Vonlee a way out and a way to avoid a murder trial.
The prosecution offered that she could plead guilty to manslaughter with an agreed-upon sentence of 7 to 15 years.
Although in order to earn the deal and dodge the murder charge, Vonlee would have to help the prosecutors get the real killer.
She'd have to testify against her aunt at her aunt's trial.
But then, just as the deal had been made, fate intervened, or more precisely, a lawyer by the name of Fred Toka. Toka wasn't Vonlee's attorney, at least not when he first contacted her in jail.
Frederick Toka comes in while Vonlee is represented by counsel, which is a complete ethical violation.
So was the offer he made to Vonlee.
It wasn't just, I can get you a better deal. It was, I can make you a star. There was the lure of movie rights, book rights, modeling contracts, fame.
Blinded by Toka's promises, Vonlee fired her attorney and hired Toka.
He has her sign a retainer agreement for the media rights to her story.
And her story was about to take a surprising twist. Because on November 28th, the day before Billy's trial was scheduled to begin, Toka presented the prosecutors with a new demand.
She will only testify if you give her 3 years. Otherwise, we're going to withdraw our plea.
But the prosecutors refused to renegotiate.
The prosecutor said, we will not be held hostage.
So Vonlee's attorney withdrew her manslaughter plea, meaning she would stand trial for murder.
He assured her he could win the case, that she wasn't going to go to prison.
But would Billy be going to prison? When her murder trial began the next day, the prosecutors were suddenly short a star witness.
There is absolutely no evidence against Billy.
Not even the detailed confession that Vonlee had made to Danny Shaheen. Once she refused to testify, it became hearsay.
That doesn't come in.
Billy, on the other hand, had plenty of star power on her side. Thanks to her dead husband's estate, she was able to afford the best attorneys and expert witnesses available.
She brings in high-profile coroner, medical examiner, forensic pathologist from New York, fresh off of the OJ trial, and comes in and pretty much says, because of this alcoholic issue, this was likely natural causes.
You can see where a jury would say, we don't really know what happened here.
In fact, that was exactly what the jury said, finding that the prosecutors had failed to prove their case against Billy beyond a reasonable doubt.
She was acquitted. Everyone just kind of sat there thinking, wow, how did this happen?
The prosecutors were as stunned as anyone. But Billy's acquittal didn't lead them to drop the murder charges against Vonlee. Far from it, in fact.
The prosecutor's office is angry as hell because now they lost a high-profile murder case because of her, and they came out guns blazing. They were going to get somebody to pay for this murder.
On March 11, 2002, Vonlee Nicole Titlow went on trial for murder at the Oakland County Circuit Court in Pontiac, Michigan. The 34-year-old and her aunt, Billie Jean Rogers, had made front-page news in the Detroit area after their arrest for the August 2000 murder of Billy's husband, Donald Rogers.
The story jumped to the front pages when it became clear that it wasn't just a spouse killing her husband, that she had involvement from her nephew or niece.
The confusion over whether the accused was Billy's niece or nephew was yet another reason the story landed on the front page.
We've got a really attractive woman who is a transgender going through a sex change.
It was very unclear what we should even call her.
And the story had gotten even more sensational in December of 2001, when a jury acquitted Billie Jean of all charges.
There is absolutely no evidence against Billy. It was an easy acquittal.
There was no evidence because the state had gone to trial without their star witness, Vonlee.
She had a deal where she would have testified against her aunt, but On her lawyer's advice, she turned down that deal.
And by the time Vonlee stood trial, Fred Toka was no longer representing her.
And once Billy's acquitted, Toka walks away.
Vonlee and her new court-appointed attorney faced a tough fight.
She has to go to trial on first-degree murder in a case where she's confessed.
What I've got is a damaged case, a damaged defendant.
One who had spent the last year in the men's wing of the Oakland County Jail.
Coming in as a transgender, as a female in a male's body, and you're very effeminate, which is what Vonlee was, it's a hard place to be.
It was a hard place for her to maintain her identity, too.
She's been off the medications. She's not given access to a lot of the hair care and skin products. She has put on weight.
But when the trial began, Vonlee was determined to present herself in court as a woman, and the judge graciously granted her request.
The judge had allowed permission for me to bring in makeup and a mirror for Vonlee to ready herself.
And by the time she appeared in court, Vonlee had managed to once again transform into the attractive woman she considered herself to be.
She had a look that was very glamorous, kind of like an old-fashioned movie star. And she maintained that look through the entire trial.
Although from his opening statement to the jury, the prosecutor made it a point to refer to Vonlee as a man.
He would refer to Vonlee as Mr. Titlow.
And as he explained to the jury, the fact that Vonlee wasn't really a woman explained why she had helped kill Donald Rogers. According to the prosecution, it was all about financing her gender reassignment surgery.
What the state does is say she had assisted her aunt in murdering her uncle for the $75,000 that it would take to travel abroad to actually have the surgery performed.
And the fact that Billy had been acquitted of her husband's murder, it didn't matter. In fact, it was inadmissible.
This case is tried in its own box. Whatever is going on in the media isn't supposed to come in. Whatever happened in the other case isn't supposed to come in.
In the defense's open, Vonlee's attorney told the jurors he wasn't claiming his client was entirely innocent.
This isn't an issue of innocence. This is an issue of the level of guilt.
And according to the defense, what Vonlee was guilty of wasn't murder.
Was she there? Yes. Did she in some fashion attempt to help early on? Yes. Did she do the ultimate act that caused the murder or caused the death? No.
However, regardless of whether Vonlee had actually placed the pillow over her uncle's face or simply stood by and let it happen, the prosecution was determined to convict her of murder, especially since her aunt had been acquitted.
When the prosecutors couldn't convict Billy, they went after Vonlee.
And they had some pretty powerful evidence to use against her. The conversation Danny Chaheen had with Vonlee while wearing a wire.
He and his tape recording for the whole case.
And when the prosecution played the tape in court, the result was electrifying.
The tape was jaw-dropping amazing. We all sat there, riveted.
I feel guilty for killing her.
This is Vonlee's voice telling everything that happened.
On cross, the defense argued that the gnawing guilt over her uncle's death was precisely why Vonlee had spoken to Danny in the first place.
She just needed to tell somebody. She just needed to confide.
She has a good heart, and she felt very guilty over what had happened to her uncle.
And when it came to just how Vonlee felt, no one could explain it better than her. When it was the defense's turn to present its case, they called Vonlee to the stand.
It's just very unnerving just to sit in that box But she was absolutely composed, with that very soft, mild-mannered voice.
On the stand, Vonlee admitted that after she and Billy found Don unconscious, she'd helped her aunt try to pour vodka down his throat.
Billy attempted to put the alcohol down him. That was her idea, and she was attempting to do it. Vonlee then assisted by helping to hold him up.
But when Dawn began to choke on the vodka,
she just said, "I'm not doing this. This is not right." And that's when she took the alcohol away, left the room.
Vonlee couldn't hardly flee.
But her aunt could and did, according to Vonlee. She testified that when she returned to the room a few minutes later, her uncle was all but dead.
She comes back out, and that's when she sees Billy Rogers with the pillow over her uncle's face.
On the stand, Vonlee admitted that she hadn't tried to stop Billy. Instead, she said she had simply watched, too terrified to do anything.
Kind of like how you watch a horror movie.
Although when her uncle stopped breathing, Vonlee said that she had urged her aunt to call 911. But Billy had refused, according to Vonlee. And when Vonlee reached for the phone, she claimed that her aunt had then threatened to blame her for Donald's death.
She manipulated Vonlee. Vonlee is weak.
And she was no killer, according to the defense.
Vonlee's defense attorney said that it was all Billy, and Vonlee was not an active participant.
In fact, as the defense pointed out, she had even said as much in her so-called confession to Danny Chahine.
He did most of it. He even told me, "I get on the work."
That may have been Billy's take on things, at least according to Vonlee, but it wasn't the prosecution's. In closing arguments, the DA made it clear to the jury that Vonlee's participation was more than enough to convict her of murder.
In Michigan, if you give even the smallest amount of aid or encouragement to somebody, you're as guilty as that person. So even though her aunt smothered Vonlee's uncle, she's just as guilty as if she had done it herself, because the accepting of the money and the things she did afterwards made her complicit in the crime.
On March 20th, 2002, the jury announced it had reached a verdict in the murder trial of Vonlee Nicole Titlow. The 34-year-old transgendered woman was accused of the murder of her elderly uncle, Donald Rogers, but blamed the entire crime on her aunt, Billie Jean Rogers.
As far as she was concerned, she didn't kill her uncle because her Aunt Billie put the pillow over his face.
However, Billie Jean had been acquitted of her husband's murder.
She walked with millions of dollars and never looked back.
But would Vonlee be as fortunate? It all came down to the reading of the verdict.
After all of the stress, it's a matter of seconds, and the future of your life has been decided.
The jury found Vonlee guilty.
The tears were streaming down my face, and Vonlee was just stoic and emotionless and squeezing my hand. It's like she was holding me together.
The jury's verdict did offer Vonlee something to cling to, though, because while charged with first-degree murder, they chose to convict her of second-degree murder.
We did get the jury to believe it wasn't planned.
The judge wound up imposing a 20 to 40-year sentence.
Although for someone in Vonlee's situation, even 20 years in prison is a tough proposition.
Looking like a female and being in a male's prison, that would sound like a woman's worst nightmare to me.
And Vonlee would no doubt agree.
She was having a very, very difficult time, harassed to the point that she was afraid to leave her cell.
Vonlee did appeal her conviction on the grounds that her attorney, Fred Toka, had provided inadequate representation when he advised her to reject a plea bargain.
He harmed his client. It's everything a lawyer's not supposed to do.
But while the appeal made it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court,
the Supreme Court ended up unanimously turning down Vonlee's argument.
her appeal a failure, Vonlee remains in prison, serving time for a crime she maintains she didn't commit.
What happened was tragic. The real person walks free, and the person who had very minimal involvement and actually had the guilt and the remorse and wanted to make things right is sitting in prison.
Music, Jasmine F. was a budding model and actress who got her start modeling body paint and swimsuits at just 28 years old. She made quite a name for herself, appearing in shows all around the Las Vegas area, and she even had a brief stint on a VH1 reality TV show. But in 2009, Jasmine's career met a sudden and tragic end when she disappeared on evening of August 14th. Within hours of her disappearance, investigators found her remains stuffed inside of a suitcase and abandoned inside of a dumpster. The state of her body was humiliating, to say the least. In fact, the perpetrator had been so brutal that Jasmine could only be identified by the serial numbers on her breast implants. But who could have done something like this? Well, detectives have a very clear idea of who the perpetrator was, and they even pressed charges against it. But for a shocking and rather unexpected reason, the man was never arrested, even though the case would go on to change the face of reality TV music forever. It was a little over 20 years ago when modern reality TV first burst onto the scene, and many credit the genre's success to shows like CBS's Survivor, which first aired in 2000 after Survivor, which saw a successful launch series like American Idol, The Bachelor, and The Osbournes weren't too far behind. By 2005, VH1 had really begun to cash in on the new craze of reality television, and soon enough they launched the series Megan Wants a Millionaire. Despite the show's incredible success, though, it only managed to air for a single season before it was canceled, and it's all because of the tragic loss of Jasmine Fear. Jasmine had a somewhat difficult time growing up because her parents separated when she was just 8 years old. This meant that her mother was forced to raise young Jasmine all on her own, living in Bonnie Doon, California. We all know how expensive it can be to live in California, so it goes without saying that the two likely struggled quite a bit. As Jasmine grew a bit older, she found that she had a love for playing football, regardless of how inclusive the sport is these days. This was a bit unusual for a girl of Jasmine's size and stature to play such a demanding sport at that time in history, but Jasmine wasn't one to shy away from pushing boundaries. As she entered her teenage years, Jasmine found a job at a local grocery store, but all the while, she wanted to pursue her dreams of becoming a model. As Jasmine became of legal age, she began applying for modeling jobs and managed to land a few work opportunities pretty quickly. She first became a swimsuit model, and soon after this, she found work as a body paint model, working for various people at parties and entertainment gatherings. Jasmine was such a big hit with her clients that she even landed several shows at some of Las Vegas's biggest casinos. For Jasmine, everything was going perfectly according to her plan, and she was truly living her dream. She appeared on various commercials for adult services, such as adult phone lines and the like, and things were really looking up for her in terms of her career. But Jasmine knew that her lifestyle wouldn't last forever. Being a pretty smart worker, she began making arrangements for where life would take her when her job as a beauty worker eventually came to an end. So she went to school and got a real estate license, and it made arrangements to open her own gym and personal training center. Jasmine had encountered various love interests over the years, and she eventually caught the attention of Robert Hasman, a man that she truly loved and admitted that she wanted to settle down with. Unfortunately, their relationship didn't really last, and they eventually went their separate ways, and before long, she found herself in the arms of a man named Travis, and the two got engaged in 2006, but they too broke off their relationship. This brings us to 2009, When Jasmine met a fellow real estate expert by the name of Ryan Jenkins, Ryan was a real estate investor who owned properties all around the Las Vegas area, but he wasn't a big shot just yet. He was more of a small-time investor who was still looking to find his place in the business and hadn't quite made it yet. With this in mind, Ryan did his best to keep his options open, and one of his options was to appear in reality TV shows on VH1. Ryan had applied for a new series known as Megan Wants a Millionaire back in late 2008 or early 2009. Ryan was over the moon when he'd been accepted onto this show, but his stint with the series didn't last very long, and he was eliminated in one of the earlier episodes. But for Ryan, this didn't matter too terribly much. That's because just days after he was eliminated from the series, he met the woman of his dreams, Jazz Fear. 2 days after this, the two were married. This may sound completely crazy to marry someone that you've only known for 2 days, and don't get me wrong, it kind of is, but the two claim that they have genuinely been in love with one another. According to Jasmine's friends and family, at this point, Jasmine was truly, genuinely happy when she was with Ryan. Jasmine was known for being a very vibrant and energetic woman, and her relationship with Ryan only further amplified these qualities. Regard of them meeting at a casino and having a spur of the moment wedding, their love was very much real, but as you might expect, things weren't always perfect. Within months of their wedding, Jasmine was forced to call the police after her husband revealed the side of himself that she never knew. Music existed in June of 2009, just 3 months after Jasmine and Ryan were married. It's rumored that Jasmine had been stepping out of her marriage behind her husband's back. Jasmine had been speaking with her former fiancé Travis, and the two had met up at what appears to have been some sort of party. At this event, Jasmine and Travis kissed, and this caused Ryan to flip out, and understandably so. But what isn't quite so understandable is Ryan's reaction to learning about this. Now, I don't know if Ryan walked in on the two, or if someone told him what had happened, but Ryan sprung into action right away, and he and Jasmine got into a very heated argument. Travis admitted to what had taken place, and soon after, Ryan punched Jasmine and caused her to fall into a nearby pool. The police were called, and charges were immediately filed against him. Ryan was then set to appear at trial in December of 2009, but the two reconciled soon after all this unfolded, and before long they were back on the same page again, but their marriage would never be the same after this. Lisa, Jasmine's mother, claims that Jasmine and Ryan fought constantly. The main reason for their argument was that Ryan claims that Jasmine was never willing to let go of her former boyfriends, and for all intents and purposes this seems to have been true. Ryan felt that if they'd broken up, that should be the end of it, but Jasmine didn't feel that way. Needless to say, Ryan was a very jealous man, but strangely, some of Ryan's jealousy and some of his fears seemed to have been somewhat justified. According to Ryan's father, Jasmine had been sneaking around behind his back for months. His father claims that Ryan had told him about multiple occasions in which Jasmine would leave for multiple days at a time and never tell Ryan that she was leaving, nor tell him where she had been for all this time. Now, what we don't know is whether or not this all came about after the two had the altercation at the party, or if this was taking place when the two were supposedly on good terms. If this all happened right after they separated after the party, then I totally get it. Jasmine needed space, and the last person she wanted to be with was Ryan. But if this was all going on while the two were on good terms and happily married, then you have to admit Ryan wasn't being too unreasonable by wanting to know why his wife had been missing for days at a time. Worse yet, according to Ryan, when she would return, she would repeatedly lie about where she had been, but Ryan had never explained how he knew she was lying. To make things even more confusing, Jasmine reportedly told her mother that the two had annulled their marriage in May of 2009, just 2 months after getting married. But after multiple searches of public records, there's no proof that this statement was true. By all means, the two appear to have been married when all of this was going down. This all brings us to August 14th of 2009, the night that the lives of Jasmine and Ryan would change forever, and the same night that Jasmine's final hours were captured on CCTV, and the night that would alter the course of reality television for the rest of history. It was August 14th, 2009, when Jasmine and Ryan made plans to stay at the LAR Hotel in San Diego. The two were scheduled to a 10-day poker tournament, which was some type of charity fundraiser to raise money for the Karma Foundation. CCTV footage from this evening was viewed by Investigators who said that the two were seen having a great time together, both Ryan and Jasmine were seen in the footage laughing and smiling. Throughout the evening, the couple left the hotel at around 2:30 a.m. On the morning of the 14th, being spotted again at the Ivy Hotel, which was a nightclub in downtown San Diego. This nightclub was the final time the two were seen together, and by 4:30 a.m., Ryan had returned to their hotel room alone, and he would check out of the hotel by himself at 9 a.m. That morning, Jasmine was never seen again. It hasn't been reported whether or not she was spotted on CCTV at the nightclub, but whatever took place at that nightclub, things don't appear to have ended well for the couple. The following day, August 15th, police announced that they located a body in an alleyway in Bua Park, California. The person had met a very, very terrible end, and detectives say that all of their teeth had been removed, as had all of their fingers, making identification incredibly difficult. Whoever had placed this body here, they did want this person to ever be identified. The only thing police were able to determine was that the remains were female, and they've been crushed inside of a suitcase that was far too small. Later that day, Ryan reported his wife missing. He told police that he had last seen Jasmine around 8:30 p.m. On August 14th at their home in Los Angeles. He said that the two had attended the aforementioned charity poker tournament, visited some bars. Then they returned home, where Jasmine dropped him off and headed out to run some errands. After this, he never saw her again. What's never been explained is why Ryan thought this disappearance, out of all the other times Jasmine had up and vanished, was suspicious. If you remember, Jasmine was known for disappearing for days at a time, but in this particular instance, he reported his wife missing less than 24 hours after she had vanished. This has never been fully explained, but investigators had reason to believe that there is much more to Ryan than meets the eye. Music. By the following day, Ryan had spent some time at the couple's home packing up some clothing and travel items. He was seen leaving their penthouse on August 16th at around 9 o'clock a.m. He then headed straight to Nevada to pick up his boat, but this wasn't the story that he shared with police when they reached out to him later that same day. He told them that he'd been in Utah and was heading to Canada to resolve some immigration issues. Around this same time, investigators had made some progress on the body that had been discovered in the dumpster, despite the fact the perpetrator had gone to such great lengths to conceal the identity of this person. The remains were identified just days later, on August 18th. As the coroner was examining the body, he noticed that the woman's breasts appeared to have been altered, and he believed she may have purchased implants at some point, and this assumption was correct. During an analysis, the coroner removed the implant and was able to read the serial number that had been printed on them. The serial number tied them directly to Jasmine. The coroner was able to determine that Jasmine had lost her life within just a few hours of her body being found, but things got much worse from here. Police were soon alerted that a white Mercedes had been found abandoned in a parking lot in West Hollywood. This discovery was made less than a mile from a home that Jasmine and Ryan shared in Los Angeles. When the car was searched, it was found that it too belonged to Jasmine, but what made this discovery so disturbing is that the inside of the car was covered in a significant amount of evidence. Red stains were found everywhere in the car, and there were even signs that Jasmine's hair had been pulled out. Police then reclassified the case, officially labeling it as a homicide investigation. At this point, police wanted to speak with Ryan about his whereabouts around the time that Jasmine had vanished, but he was nowhere to be found. The following day, on the 19th of August, Ryan called his father from Vancouver, proving that he did eventually make it to Canada, as he had told investigators he would. It was during this phone call that Ryan's father informed him that police were looking to speak with him and that they'd found Jasmine's body, and that they had reason to believe she'd been the victim of a homicide. At this point, police were actively searching for Ryan. For one reason or another, they firmly believed he was behind the crime, and a manhunt soon followed. Before long, investigators received a tip that Ryan's black BMW SUV had been spotted heading towards the U.S.-Canada border while towing a boat. Police later found the vehicle at a marina in Washington. The vehicle was empty, and the trailer that it was towing was also empty, proving the boat was out somewhere on the water. The vehicle's engine was still warm, though, so Ryan couldn't have gone too far. It needs to be mentioned that at this point, Ryan wasn't considered guilty. He was merely considered a person of Interests that police desperately wanted to speak to. Police were so interested in getting in touch with him that the U.S. Coast Guard and the Customs and Border Protection Agency announced that they were sending out multiple boats to search for him. It wouldn't be until August 19th that a credible signing of Ryan finally came, and a witness had spotted someone who resembled Ryan piloting a boat near Point Roberts in Washington, where Ryan's stepmother was known to have lived. No sooner than this report came in, police announced that they had reason to believe he had crossed the border back into Canada sometime between the 19th and the 20th. This was the final straw for investigators. They knew that Ryan had been informed that police were looking for him, so to them this was proof that he was evading capture. This prompted them to escalate their search for him, labeling him as their prime suspect and officially charging him with music homicide. It was August 20th when arrived at the Thunderbird Motel in British Columbia, Canada. He arrived with a young woman who the motel worker described as attractive, young, and very calm. The two paid for 3 nights at the hotel, and the manager didn't find them even the least bit suspicious. When police investigated the identity of the woman that Ryan was seen with, they quickly realized that it was his half-sister Elena. The motel manager noted that he'd spotted Ryan walking out front of his room on August 21st, looking extremely exhausted. He said that he looked so disheveled that even though he was aware of the manhunt for Ryan Jenkins, he didn't recognize this as being the same person by 11:30 a.m. On August 23rd, the manager noticed that Ryan had never checked out of his room, which had been booked under Elena's name. The manager then asked his nephew to go check in on him and make sure that he had left, but that's when he walked in on yet another crime scene. When the nephew opened the door to the room, he found Ryan's body hanging from a cloth rack by a belt. He had taken his own life. A note was never found at the scene of the crime, but investigators would later find one on Ryan's computer dated to August 20th. The contents of this letter have never been made public, and unfortunately, this means that Jasmine's case to this day has never been solved. But this is far from the end of the story. Police very firmly believe that Ryan was the one who took Jasmine's life. In fact, they're pretty much certain that this is true. They have no other people of interest, and it's pretty clear to see that Ryan was struggling with some pretty serious guilt in the final days and hours of his life. After Ryan lost his life, police began to look more closely into his past, and VH1 did the same thing. VH1 being the company that invited him to appear on Megan Wants a Millionaire. According to VH1, they always conduct a background check on every star that appears on one of their reality TV shows. They claimed that Ryan's background check came back perfectly clear, but a subsequent check revealed some interesting information. As it would turn out, back in 2007, Ryan had been investigated for assaulting a woman in Calgary. The production company behind Megan Wants to Be a Millionaire reiterated that he would never have been allowed onto the show if they'd been aware of this. VH1 explained that they employ a third-party private investigative firm to conduct all of their background checks, but these checks are limited to crimes that occurred within US borders, and Calgary is obviously located in Canada, so the information of this crime never made it to VHY. But what makes things even more interesting is that this third-party company, Collective Intelligence, announced that they hadn't actually been the ones to conduct the background check. Since Ryan was originally from Canada, they had outsourced the background check to another company known as Straight Line International. In the wake of the allegations against Ryan, Collective Intelligence sued Straight Line International for breach of contract, claiming that the company was fully aware of Ryan's violent history but never reported the history to Collective Intelligence or VH1. Collective Intelligence would eventually lose trust with its primary clients Viacom, NBC, and ABC, and Straight Line was forced to pay Collective Intelligence over $800,000 in damages. But things are still about to get even crazier. If you could even imagine, VH1 had not only hired Jenkins to be a part of the first season of Megan Wants a Millionaire. In fact, after he'd been eliminated from the show, they hired him to appear in season 3 of I Love Money, yet another reality TV series. Now, I've never seen this show, but the Wikipedia article about the series says that the show involved contestants competing in various physical and mental challenges with the hope of winning a $250,000 grand prize. As it would turn out, Ryan Jenkins actually won the 3rd season of the show. Ryan reportedly called Jasmine every day while he was filming the show, promising her he was going to do everything he could to win the money so that the two could live the life they had always dreamed of. But it was also reported that throughout the duration of him filming the show, his calls to Jasmine grew progressively more and more aggressive with each passing day, and it became clear that he was growing suspicious of Jasmine while he was gone and feared that she may have been cheating on him. And upon his return from filming, if the rumors about her involvement with her ex-boyfriend are true, he may have been right, and this may have been his motive for ending Jasmine's life. In the aftermath of this revelation, VH1 made the decision to pull the plug on the third season of I Love Money Not. One episode of this season has ever aired, and the production company 51 Minds was forced to settle with VH1 for over $12 million in losses from their inability to air the show. This was a pretty serious blow for the company, and it was a massive blow for reality television as a whole, and could have easily ruined the entire genre. See, when you watch a typical fictional television show, you likely don't think too terribly much about the actors, because they're not portraying themselves on screen, they're portraying a character that was created and written for them. But when it comes to reality TV, part of what makes it so captivating is that you're watching the actual person say and do things that they would likely actually say and do in real life. It may be amped up, but it's not fictional. But the thing with reality TV is that even when watching these stars on the big screen, you still have no idea who they are as a person, and that's a scary thought. It's the same feeling that comes along with watching famous YouTubers or social media stars. You only see what they or their publicity team wants you to see. For Ryan Jenkins, VH1 only wanted you to see the entertaining side of him. For the most part, these companies couldn't care less who these people are behind the scenes, and Ryan was no exception. If being honest, I have a pretty good feeling that the only reason VH1 was even upset about all this was because it nearly lost them $12 million on that third season of I Love Money, and a scandal like this could have easily ruined their entire reality TV catalog. When speaking with Mark Cronin, the co-founder of 51 Minds, the main production company behind many of VH1's most popular reality TV shows, he explains that the loss of Jasmine Fier has cast a shadow on the reality TV genre as a whole. He said that the crimes of Ryan Jenkins have given him new perspective when he's selecting contestants for future reality TV shows, saying that he trusts his gut a lot more these days, suggesting that he had a gut feeling that something wasn't right about Ryan, but chose to bring him on the show anyway, further proving my point that for the most part these companies don't care about these people or who they really are as a person. Another producer spoke up and said that he would rather have a gut feeling about someone, exclude them from a show, and be wrong about them than end up with another situation like Ryan Jenkins. The producer for another reality TV series, Big Brother, has even stated that these days many studios who conduct background checks no longer even take into account their budget. They want the best, most thorough background check they can find with no regards to cost, and I just hope that this is true. In the end, Ryan Jenkins was never able to be held accountable for his alleged crimes, but if there's anything good that's come out of this case, it's that the entirety of reality TV seems to be a much safer place now, even if only to protect the bottom lines of these faceless corporations. But it should never have taken the loss of someone's life for these studios to provide their actors with a safe work environment, and that much should never be forgotten. Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of True Crime Stories. If you enjoyed this video, check out this other interesting case that I covered, and don't forget to subscribe. It's totally free and keeps you up to date with all of my future videos. But with that, my name is Ty Knott, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.